Joining me now is Chuck Kwan. He's the former chair of the Toronto Association for Democracy in China, and Katie Neviabandi, Secretary General of Amnesty International Canada. Thanks to both of you for being there. Happy Friday. We've got a pretty hefty topic here, but I want to ask both of you, and I'll start with you, Chuck. Where the media reports in the last weeks, the first you heard about possible Chinese interference in Canadian affairs and in Canadian elections, or has foreign interference been on your radar for a while?
It's been on our radar for more than 10, 15 years. In many cases, it's a very gradual increasing of interference that we have observed from China. Unlike CSIS, we are on the ground a lot of times, and we speak the language, we understand the culture, we read the social media, so we are quite aware of what's going on. And I can even name you the names of those 11 people whom CSIS suspected have been being under the influence of China.
And Katie, have you been following this for as long?
We have. In fact, we issued a report in 2017, and then in 2020, in partnership with the coalition that includes a number of human rights activists from China, in which we urged at the time the Canadian government to take this matter quite seriously, because the reports that we were receiving indicated that these human rights activists who are based in Canada were the subject of harassment and clearly done by foreign interference. But part of what we advocated for was a concerted response in order to better protect these individuals. But what I'd like to add is that it extends, I think you were focusing on China, but it does extend beyond China as well. There are other states who, I think we often assume that once people are on Canadian soil, they are safe and they're no longer the subject of threats from their respective governments. But it's actually very far from the fact and from the truth. And we have several reports that indicate that human rights defenders who are here continue to receive threats and harassment that's often originating from their home states. Sometimes it goes through embassy officials who are based here in Canada. Sometimes it's in a way that's difficult to trace, but they know, the activists themselves know that the subject and the object of these threats are to silence them. And so we've been calling for a more concerted effort to respond to those.
And I want to get to those efforts, but I want to ask Chuck this question. What kind of specific pressures, threats are people under from, in your case, from China?
Well,
give us an example.
It could be a very innocuous phone call in the middle of the night to many of our critics of China. Could be people like myself or Tibetans or Uyghurs. And this is the thing that Katie was talking about. We have documented these harassments. It could be a confrontation, in-person confrontation as well. So all these things are happening to the critics of China, and especially to a lot of people who fled China. And it doesn't have to be even in person. It could be just a very nice phone call and say, "Hey, how's your brother-in-law?" Knowing that your brother-in-law is back home somewhere in China, and that he might not get a good job if you don't follow what I told you to do. So these are all kinds of things that China can get to these critics, and we've been urging the Canadian government, especially RCMP, to set up a hotline. And this has, at the first instance, when we issued a report with Amnesty International in the lead in 2017, it was ignored. And only after we issued it around 2020 that we got some traction in the press. But in the meantime, I'm still hearing people like one of the MPs were saying that, well, we need more time to study this and do a do a committee study and whether we need it or not. So this is something that I find very alarming. And I want to go back to
Katie.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
I want to go back to the whole CSIS kind of leak and warning this time around. It's almost like you're on a Titanic and you're looking for iceberg, and now you see a little bit of iceberg coming out, and that should be serve as a warning enough. But the more troubling thing was that below the iceberg, there's another 90% of the body of the iceberg that we haven't seen yet. And this is something that China has been building over the last 10, 15 years, that 90% that is submerged under the water that CSIS might not have picked up.
Katie, I want to ask you that because you see not only pressure from China, but from other countries. I would ask you, what other countries, and do you think that people who are being harassed and pressured, do they have a place to go? Do they know where to go to complain to the RCMP, to CSIS? Do they have any idea that they could go somewhere?
Mm-hmm. Yes, so this is a pattern that we're seeing across the board, and that includes several countries, the majority of them being from repressive states or countries that tend to repress either the opposition or civil society or their journalists. And so we tend to see that happens. And as Chuck described, it could be a phone call, but we've also seen things like intimidation of student groups on campus. We've seen things like fake letters being sent to these defenders, fake emails, or again, calls, anonymous phone calls, either to themselves or to family members, sometimes occasionally people being followed as well, and a sense of a recurring following pattern or observance of their daily routine. So the challenge, I think, is exactly that. I think the question that you pose, who do they go to? Here, I think we've been hearing about foreign interference and how the state can respond, but the individuals who are in a country tend to be forgotten. So where do you go when things like that happen? You go to your local police office, except that your local police office doesn't have the international and geopolitical context to fully address this. So often it's treated as an isolated incident instead of a pattern of behavior, and it's not given the proper and adequate response that it needs, which is why we've been calling for a more of a focal point that is really dedicated to serve and respond and protect individuals who are faced by foreign interference efforts. A complaint mechanism and a focal point that or a hotline that people could go to, and where these threats could be triaged and assessed, and this data can be collected and treated adequately. So that's one of the key calls that we're making. Again, bearing in mind that many, particularly historically marginalized communities, have a difficult relationship with often law enforcement authorities and surveillance, and we have to make sure that this doesn't become an avenue to further surveil these communities. But we need a solution for people to go to.
And the good thing, and unfortunately this is the only time we have left, but the good thing about this conversation that we're having, very public conversation on Parliament Hill and across Canada, is that these things are coming to the surface, and perhaps, the politicians who sit not so far from where I am will do something about it now that it is in the public domain. So Chuck Kwan and Katie Nevia-Bandy, thank you so much for sharing your time with us and your thoughts.